Hi-ho, neighborinos. It's Timeline Junkie. This is the director's commentary for Letterhead Act 1. I have never done a director's commentary. I was actually supposed to record one for a real-life film that I made last year, and I haven't got around to it yet. But as a rapidly aging millennial that grew up in the DVD era, I love director's commentaries, and they've taught me so much about filmmaking and just the directors that I love. And so my theory on all things that I do artistically is I try to treat it with the same seriousness as somebody who's like already famous and already has a audience and whatnot. And even if it's two people that would care to hear this, it's worth it for me to do this for those two people. So if you're listening to this right now, I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I don't also really know how to talk for less than an hour. So I'm probably going to run this back again. I might show an earlier work print on the second version, but I also might do a video where I just go through like all 5 work prints that I had and sort of like show people the genesis and really how it's created. But the second run through, I'm going to talk more on the technical side of how things were made. And then on the first one, I want to talk just more about the story and kind of where it came from. So the background on this is, just seeing the debate and living through that moment with the rest of the country, watching in horror as we realize that our president isn't really mentally all there. The last thing I'll say before we start the movie is I never made this movie to be a right-wing film. It was definitely made to be marketed towards right-leaning people because they're just going to be more interested in something like this. But I really wanted to make just like a real cinematic feeling movie about an interesting character and an interesting story. And Joe Biden and fate and God and history all just laid that out right before me last July. And so I started making these kind of mock trailers of what I thought the movie would be. And I wanted to make the movie completely from Joe Biden's perspective for the most part and just show the other side of what we'd all lived through, what we all have context for. We all know who Joe Biden and Joe Biden is and Hunter Biden. A lot of people know about this stuff already, but I wanted to provide the inverse look, from their perspective. And I didn't want to make a movie that was just talking about how cool Trump is and stuff. Like, I have no interest in doing that. That's why Republicans are like the orcs in Lord of the Rings in these films. So again, this is Act 1. So this is basically the first third of the story. And then the Letterhead film is sort of the anchor, but then there's going to be multiple smaller threads and stuff moving out that are similar to the videos I've done up until this, that are more like social media content and not as like full-blown cinematic, because I do want to keep going into, this is basically like my Marvel MCU, but just for politics. And if I ever want to talk about politics, I'm going to put it in the Letterhead timeline. So this is sort of this is like Iron Man for my politics timeline, basically. So anyway, I'm going to shut up and we are going to press play. This is not a true story thing. It's actually a name of another screenplay I wrote. And I do intend to make it in an AI version, but ultimately a real life version. And I've always thought it was kind of a cool title for like a film company or whatever. So I might just be putting that in front of all of my stuff, just as sort of a disclaimer as well. There's a lot of very deep Joe Biden lore in this, in symbolism in this movie, and that if you know a lot about them, you'll probably pick up on it. But for the average viewer, if you don't, it might come across as awkward or weird. But for this scene, I just really, once I like committed on the decision of making it from like a first-person perspective, at least for a lot of it, I wanted like a kind of random, deeply personal moment that Joe Biden would sort of wander off in his own mind and get trapped in and think about. But I also liked the idea that like when Joe Biden's like going in and out and has these like sort of hallucinations, it's almost like he's like time traveling or like going into another dimension and it's like ripping through. So the other thing I'll say is right off the bat, all of the Bidens sound weird. They all have weird sounding voices. I don't know how else to explain it. Jill Biden sounds weird. Beau Biden, Hunter Biden, none of their voices match their face or their like body. And it makes for an awkward experience when you're already trying to sell it with AI and stuff like that. And I'll get into, how it was made later, but I did ultimately like how this first scene turned out. It turned out pretty much exactly how I wrote it in the script. This is the first AI thing that I've ever actually written a script for. Most of the other times, the script just comes to life in the voice generator, and I just kind of pick by what dialogue sounds the best. But I wanted to, snap us right into that moment in the debate where, like, we are Joe Biden. We can tell that we're not in control of our faculties and things are slipping away from us and we're not all there. And, then slip into the other perspective from the news and watch, what it's like seeing that on TV in person and seeing him realize it there, and then switching to this sort of long sequence. I was going to kind of make it like a credit sequence initially, and then I realized, like, there's no credits. Like, I'm pretty much the only person that was sort of involved in making the movie. But I wanted to kind of like do like a introduction, like, oh, that's Tucker Carlson, that's Chuck Schumer, that's, but I didn't ultimately decide to do that. I wanted this to kind of be like, if the stuff is too inside baseball for people, they can go Google it and they can go and find out and actually learn about it themselves. The Harry Sisson thing is hilarious to me, and that was such a good shot. I wanted to sort of at times tread the line between meme stuff and not. You know what I mean? I definitely take cheap shots at the Democrats in this, but in my opinion, they deserve it. For 16 years, I watched people take cheap shots at the Bush administration, and they deserved it too. Alex Soros turned out pretty good. The Zelensky shot's pretty good. I just gotta say, shout out to Hailou, man. Like, their subject reference is the best in the fucking game, I think. I don't know how they did it, but they just cracked the code. This shot of the White House, too, I use it a lot because it's just fucking gorgeous. Runway did that shot. And so, again, we have more symbolism, with the car crash and stuff like that. Joe Biden has had a very, very tragic life. And I don't think most people really know that. If you followed his earlier political career, obviously you will. They talked about it a lot more, but he really doesn't anymore. And then, I wanted to drop us into the moment after the debate. This scene initially was supposed to be a lot more hectic and have a lot more people running around and stuff, but technical limitations kind of caused me to reduce it down to like 2 people. And basically, this is our introduction to Jill, and this is our introduction to Kevin O'Connor, his physician. And Kevin O'Connor, my goal with this is I didn't want any of these people to be like cigar chomping Adam West Batman villains. I wanted to make them all real seeming people, but of course, it's a film and it needs to be entertaining. So some characters are more antagonistic and some are a little more sympathetic to the protagonist, but when we're in Joe Biden's perspective and we see Jill, it's a much younger version of her. Like Joe kind of, that's how he still views her. He views her as her younger self. And it was like an on-purpose decision. And looking at it, I didn't really do much to explain that or why. And so I kind of realized that it probably just looks like I just didn't do it right. But that is that was like a choice. I wanted to warp how people looked when you're in Joe Biden's vision more so than when it's just like the regular story itself. Cigarette Smoking Man is canon in the Letterhead universe. Just want to say that. This is our introduction to Bruce Reed. Bruce Reed is the deputy chief of staff. He worked under Mike Donnellan, I believe, but he was kind of on the inner circle of Biden, largely reported as kind of a sycophant, a brown-noser, kiss-ass type, and basically most of the Biden administration, his initial cabinet and inner circle, and less so his cabinet and more the actual people who called the shots, were basically just all people who were loyal to Biden. They didn't really have any special qualifications. They weren't super geniuses. They were just loyal. This conversation that we hear of Joe and Jill was supposed to be a whole scene. It was supposed to be another first-person scene, but honestly, I kind of felt it was too front-loaded in the beginning of the movie with that. And so I felt it was a better way to just transition into this conversation. So this is our introduction to Julie Chavez. She was supposed to be in the CNN scene as well. So we got Kevin, Bruce, and Julie talking. Now, Julie, we have technically been introduced to in 2 previous Letterhead videos, one about Kamala's campaign, and if I ever get around to making that or including that in the full Letterhead story, she will continue on in that. Kevin O'Connor and Bruce Reed also, their voices are not their actual voices. I have no idea how these guys sound. It was very hard to locate that. Yeah. So, but this scene turned out kind of well. It's really hard when you're trying to make stuff in Midjourney and you're trying to figure out the geography of a scene and get everyone's sight lines right and where they're sitting and the background and the room, and especially doing it in a plane, which is like a narrow corridor. It's not that simple. So this is also our kind of de facto introduction of the mysterious Mike Donnellan. In my version of this story, he is kind of the de facto president. Sort of doesn't want to be, but he just is.
It's for you.
I really like how this little dream thing turned out. I wanted to try and make it like Half-Life 2 graphics. I don't know why, I just thought that was kind of vibey. And so then, we've got younger Jill again, because this is a full dream sequence. I love fake-out dream sequences. There's a really good one in Batman v Superman, one of the most hated movies ever. A lot of this footage we've seen before. I've used this before, and I wanted to sort of pay it off and show people what it was actually from and why I was making this sort of weird psychedelic political imagery. I love the shot of the crying old politicians in jumpsuits. That's just awesome for me. Abbey Gate, Russia, him drowning in red. I just wanted to add like a lot of like weird, trippy symbolism and stuff like that. There's, I watched a ton of political dramas and biopics and stuff like that. People say biopics, but I'm basically saying it's biopics because it's a biographical pic, and you don't say I don't know. That sequence too is pretty cool. I like how it ended, but then we go into this moment, and this is sort of the seed that gets planted for the Obama revenge storyline. It was largely reported that the Obama administration sort of used Beau's death as a reason to go with Hillary versus Trump the first time instead of him. He really resented that. He was sort of surrounded by all these people who he viewed as less qualified politicians and people with less experience. Like Joe Biden's been in service for a long service is going a little far, but he's served his country for over 40 years and stuff like that. Obama was a very inexperienced politician when he came in. And so I think that's like one of 2 shots of Secret Service people that we ever see. I wanted a lot more Secret Service in the movie, but it was just getting to be time consuming. And so, all of the stuff that's in this movie, none of it is particularly outrageous to me or like below the belt. I didn't really try to touch on a lot of the seedier, salacious stuff that people talk about with the Bidens. I wanted to keep it solely focused on what my, opinion, the biggest crime is just the fact that the president really wasn't in his full mental capacity and everyone around him was lying about it and just doing the job for him. And we didn't vote for them. And also that, they were more than likely giving him drugs to keep him sort of in this state to where he looked like he was in charge and stuff. But when you hear what the White House was really like during that time, it's fucking terrifying. And I don't know, as an American citizen, that just doesn't sit right with me. And so I really tried to focus on with this, the pressure Biden was under to perform and stuff like that, but also his sort of just like, he's just, everybody said like past 4 p.m., he just wasn't that useful. And, 8 p.m. is like late for him, and that's why he did so bad in the debate. And he just was asleep a lot, and there's a lot for the president to do on a day-to-day thing. And you just start to hear stories that, oh yeah, this executive order got signed, that got signed, and he's got no memory of signing it. So I wanted to push on that, and I kind of use it as a plot device to where it's like it's sort of like a ticking time bomb thing, to where it's like they need him to be on taking the shots. And I don't really like specifically say, like I say government issued meth one time, which is a drug called modafinil, and it's basically just like government Adderall or Ritalin or Dexedrine or something like that. But more or less though, I wanted it to be like every time he does something like that, it sort of makes this mysterious brain condition that he has get worse. I really love Chuck just grumbling to himself down the hallway. That's just fucking hilarious to me. I don't know why. A lot of this stuff that I put in here that's humor is like stuff that I genuinely don't think other people will laugh at probably, but like I think it's hilarious, so I just put it in. And when I go back and watch my older stuff, there's like a lot of like moments that I think are funny, but then like when I look at it objectively, it's like really awkward and kind of doesn't, like it takes you out of it kind of. But I don't care. I still put it in there. I tried to have a lot of good cool down B-roll moments in this to kind of take us scene to scene. I am happy with the pacing of the movie. I've had one person on YouTube say it was kind of slow for them, and that's fair. But to me, I kind of really tried to move it along and really fill out the world as much as I could. That's why I added this little Ukraine scene in. I wanted to sort of, I knew I was going to have some type of thing to shake us out of the campaign in the story, to where it's like, just something happens, something that the president has to deal with happens, and not a candidate. And so I did this, and I did this to kind of showcase the position that Mike Donnellan had, and who the military would have been communicating with, and stuff for things like this. And just to put a little action scene in there, just to wake everybody up, and some explosions and loud noises and stuff. And yeah, it was really fun. I definitely want to make a war movie at some point. I could literally do a fucking podcast on war movies. One of the first things I did, fan edit wise, is a project I'm still working on called the Global War on Terror Ultra Cut, where I've basically taken every single movie about the War on Terror that had to do with a real event, and I have edited them together all on one chronological story that ends up resulting in 8 3-hour long movies. I have 5 of them, at least I have work prints done of them, but I really love talking about politics and film, so I'm probably going to start doing a podcast or regular thing about that. So this scene is our kind of introduction to Jen O'Malley Dillon. She was one of the chief advisors to the campaign, and I think she worked on Joe Biden's first campaign. I want to say she worked on Obama's second campaign. So she was kind of one of the people that, where they say, oh, Obama's third term and stuff like that. Which I just like, the more I look into it, the more I don't understand that accusation, but that's for a different time, I guess. This scene was actually very, very difficult to do. Trying to match up, I don't know, trying to match up like the Oval Office and get like consistent pictures and stuff. Everything's good with AI with character consistency right now, but it's not good with background consistency. And that's something that like I just don't understand why more AI companies aren't focusing on. But we'll talk about that with the second run through. I don't know why I like making my female characters really funny. And like witty, and I just, again, I didn't want the Democrats in this movie to be cartoonish, villains. Like, they're not the villains of the movie. These are people all trying to figure out this crazy situation. There were a handful of movies that were the inspiration for this, that kind of like sort of spiritually guided my idea through to this, and the first one is The Manchurian Candidate from 2004 with Denzel Washington. That really inspired the first-person perspective. There's so many like haunting first-person shots in that movie. The second one is The Ides of March, directed by George Clooney. It's a really, really whip-smart, good movie about a hotshot campaign advisor who gets caught up in a scandal with his candidate, and shows the darker side of politics and running for office, and it's about Democrats. It's all about Democrats in the movie. And then the other one is The Iron Lady, and it's a Meryl Streep movie. It's about Margaret Thatcher. It's kind of a cheap shot movie, I'm not gonna lie. They just make her out to be an old crazy woman because like she had dementia like in her 80s, which is kind of normal. But it did have some interesting stuff, and it was kind of a visual inspiration as well. This scene right here, I had not written it in the script, but I also kind of knew it was gonna need to be somewhere. I wanted to give Biden like a big introduction, and that was gonna be the governor's meeting scene. But I decided I needed something before that because I realized like we just haven't really seen him, you know, in the character form yet that way. So I wanted to kind of give him, he's almost been asleep for 2 days, like because of the debate, because of the thing after the debate, he's been asleep for like 2 days. And then he's kind of waking up and realizing what needs done and realizing the mess that he's in right now. And, so he's kind of like psyching himself up. He's like trying to mentally prepare himself. And he's using his hatred of Trump as his motivation. And I genuinely do believe Joe Biden hated Trump. I think the things that Trump has said about his sons really, really got under his skin and really made him be like, oh, I'm going to ruin this motherfucker's life. When he said, you know, my son's not a sucker, you're a sucker, or whatever. Like he was like baring his teeth when he said it. And I think that's one of the interesting things about Joe Biden, you know, like of all the dirt digging I've done on him and stuff like that, the one thing I know to be true is he loves the shit out of his sons. And most of his life has not been about his sons. He's definitely done sleazy politician, you know, putting himself in the shot with them when his first wife died and stuff. You know, there's been stuff like that, just typical sleazy politician stuff. But for the most part, though, I definitely think he's enabled Hunter. And it's a big part of the reason, but that's also why, like, you know, politician's kid or preacher's kid, you know, it's all like the same stereotype. So I had a more elaborate introduction for all the governors planned out, but it's honestly just too hard to do with AI. So I had to kind of tighten it up and simplify it. Joe Biden, also very Catholic, second Catholic president we've ever had. And I believe that. By all accounts, I believe he is a God-fearing man. Church was important to him. And, you know, he didn't seem to pander to that either. So anyway, Gavin Newsom is kind of the villain of this scene. I don't know why I did this. I don't really think Gavin Newsom would, like, spaz like that, but he's kind of a strong... You could put Gavin Newsom in a movie. He looks like an actor. He's a good-looking guy. And he's got a good commanding voice. And I wasn't going to have fucking Tim Walz be the villain. And so, yeah, this scene actually turned out pretty much exactly as it was written in the script. And I'm very happy about that. I think it's a good sort of crescendo to the movie. And because this is like, you know, this is his challenge. He's got to... he's got to get through this to even continue on in the campaign. It's like the enemies are at the gates now. The Republicans can smell blood in the water, but also the Democrats can too. And this is how he defends himself. He basically threatens them with the last 6 months of his presidency and what he can do if he's got nothing left to lose. And we saw that version of Biden. And that's, you know, that's part of his arc that's so interesting. I mean, like, I just got to give it to him, man. Like, Joe Biden created one of the most interesting movie-ready stories in American politics in a long time. And that's why I chose to make this. And that's why I think people are responding to it, too, because everybody could kind of tell, like, he is just a character. And his team really tried to make him a character, too. Democrats were always good at that. Democrats always understood, you know, media and you know, Democrats spoke in stories. You know, they didn't talk hard. It's always been conservatives' problem is they just talk numbers and just put people to sleep. And as soon as someone like Trump came around and started talking about people like people do, it works. And so I love how Tim Walz hangs his head and just gets like sunned by Biden right there. Aren't you their governor? Again, something that other people might not find funny. I think it's fucking hilarious. And when like the AI kicks back a good take like that, it's like double hilarious to me. And as an editor, it's just fun to get to play with like good takes and stuff, but also to be able to just have infinite reshoots and to get to go back. And I know that makes, you know, a lot of good day, boom, and then it cuts to black. This is the succession moment in the show. This is the end where they almost schemed against Logan Roy, but then Logan Roy pulled out a fucking, ace up his sleeve, and they all realized that they're screwed. And I'm a big fan of Succession. I could talk for days about that show. But also, this was interesting. I remember seeing this on the news. Tim Walz, Kathy Hochul, and Wes Moore. That's why I focused on them in the governor's meeting to be kind of the characters, because I had this real news footage to work with after. And I wanted, kind of just to cycle through the characters that are going to be coming up, more. This is kind of like the epilogue of the movie now we're getting into. But Joe and his famous aviators, that was, again, part of the characterization, part of the myth. They were trying to myth build with Joe Biden, which I loved. So then, boom, enter George Clooney. This was a total just Steven Soderbergh tribute. I love Ocean's 12. I love pretty much every Steven Soderbergh movie. I think he's one of the greatest of all time. And I just love the idea of George Clooney just like bored, contemplating life with like an beautiful Italian woman just yapping in his ear, and he couldn't care less. And but then he gets the phone. It's Obama, his buddy. And I was going to give Joseph Kahn some lines. He'll have some lines in the director's cut probably, but it just was, his voice, again, sounds weird. And I just wanted to move this along and have it be a little teaser scene for, what's going to be Act 2. And then here we have the final reveal of Mr. Thomas Crooks. I don't, I don't have actually too many like conspiracies in my head about the Trump shooting or what it actually could be. And my intention with this was always to keep it vague and sort of keep it as sort of like a parallel event in the movie, but it's definitely going to get touched on more. The attempted assassination is a big part of Act 2. I can at least tease that, but, yeah, I really like how this scene turned out, though. I wanted just some creepy imagery and just like the woods and just a kid with a rifle, but I didn't want to show him. I just wanted you to hear it. Credit sequence. This is just artwork I made in Midjourney. I always go back every couple weeks and I just try to make some new Letterhead stuff, so I have pictures to post and whatnot. The song is "No More Heroes" by the Stranglers. They're a great early post-punk band. They might be punk or post-punk. I don't really know. I'm not a complete music historian like that, but they're incredible. Sped it up super fast, though, to avoid copyright stuff. But I'll probably replace it. And again, thank you for watching. That's really the main thing I want to stress. Anything I'm talking about or time I'm talking about my art is I ultimately do make this stuff for myself. I make the stuff that I want to see. But I also feel it's important to share that stuff in case other people want to see it too. And you guys have proven that people do, and it means the world to me. And it has literally changed my life. I mean, when I started making these videos, one of them kind of popped off and did a couple million views between 3 big accounts that stole it. And that sort of jump-started my follower count on X and, got me a producer for the movie, and somebody that is helping me make it and helping me pay for it, because it is definitely expensive to do. I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'll be right back, and we'll run through it again, and I'll talk more about the technical side of things. 1 second. Okay, so we're going to press play. This will be sort of the technical run-through.
Well, look who it is, Mr. Vice President.
You guys are probably watching this in 480p if you're watching it on X. You can always go to the YouTube and watch the higher resolution version. Doesn't make as big of a difference. A lot of the stuff I couldn't upscale properly the way I needed to. This scene, while turning out pretty much exactly as I had intended in the script, it looked nothing like how I had envisioned. I was testing all types of stuff to figure out the first-person stuff. I was making environments in Copper Cube and bringing them over to Runway, but that was too unreliable. I was trying with Gary's mod. That was too unreliable. Some of the Gary's mod shots that I did end up making in Runway did end up making it into the movie, but not nearly as many as I thought. Runway I have a very love-hate relationship with. A lot of this stuff early in the thing is just Midjourney. Midjourney brought into Hailou. I take frames from Hailou, upscale those in Runway, then build another video off of that so you can kind of see. All good VFX and all good editing is the art of making accidental mistakes feel like intentional choices, and that's what a lot of is going on here. But we did want to add the eye blinks in the beginning anyway, just to, you know, really sell it that you're, you know, looking through someone else's eyes and stuff. But ultimately, I like how this scene turned out. I wish there was just a little smoother stuff going on. And I did have a lot of technical computer issues that forced me to use an older version of the scene, and I didn't have time to rebuild it from scratch. I had basically made about 80% of the movie, and then had a issue happen to where I lost it all, but I had to work off of a work print and reconstruct 80% of the movie in like 2 days, and like my fucking wrist literally hurt. So again, this one's same method. This whole first sequence is kind of done the same method, but just, you know, photo into Hailou, frame taken from the video from Hailou, and then, you know, another, upscale that, and then another one. Even though a lot of this stuff is the literal work print that I just brought back in, because it actually degraded the footage more and it kind of made it look cool and fuzzy like a memory. This is obviously just real footage. I have no idea the legalities of like using news footage, but it's like historical record or some shit, so I don't think there's any like copyright to what the president says. I'm not sure. This whole sequence was also I was gonna do like a bunch of like a little graphic where it explains who they are and what they do, but I ultimately decided against it because it's like, if you're watching this shit in the first place, you know who these people are, and if you don't, you can look it up and try and figure it out, which is also fun as well. You know, a lot of people have already kind of been confused as to why George Clooney's in it, and it's like, well, he's actually a genuinely important character in this story, and you guys will find out why in Act 2 if you don't know. But yeah, this whole sequence is fun. I have just been working with Hailou's subject reference, which is the best in the fucking game. And it's just, you know, probably takes 10 prompts per character to get the thing I want, but that's because of my prompting. I'm a fairly lazy prompter. And I didn't get into this shit to write a small novel before each time I click generate. Like, AI is a supercomputer. I'm going to let it do some of the work, which is also what I love about the process of. I also love that shot of Hunter. That turned out like just so fucking well. The way he like toasts to the TV, like it's just. I didn't even write that in, you know. Like I didn't write that in. Hailou just did that for me, and I love it. This shot was actually done with frames in Runway, and then taken into Hailou. And actually, no, it might have been just in Runway that I did it. I'm about done with Midjourney, to be honest, and so with that, you know, using frames into Runway, it is actually really fast and seamless and works really well. I will give them credit for that, but they just don't have. I don't know. There's just some stuff that it's just wonky and off, especially if you do 10 seconds. So this is Midjourney photos taken into Hailou for the non-speaking parts, and then separate background, green screen the characters. Some of them, there's a few lines where the face is composited on, I think. But then, yeah, and it's like we're shifting the distance and camera position in the background as well as with them to kind of mimic him sort of swaying back and forth. You know, he's catching his breath, you're hearing his heartbeat and stuff like that. Yeah, so like that would be like a Hailou shot that we transition into. The eye blinks really saved me with that, because if not, you just see these like frame jumps and they look ugly. So this is, you know, sort of the first trippy sequence of, well, I guess the second trippy sequence of the movie. This is the after party that Joe Biden went to after the debate. Basically exactly as I had written it in the script for the most part. I wanted to kind of like put more characters in there and like add some dialogue, but it slowed it down a lot and it just wasn't that important. I just wanted it to be a thing that Joe Biden would be extra tired for. So this again is just Midjourney into Hailou, frame taken out of Hailou, upscaled in Runway, another video of Hailou to try and get this continuous walking towards the plane, but it's I fucking love how that whole sequence turned out. I'm obsessed with airstrips and like people doing stuff near planes and stuff. Like visually, I don't know why. It's just like, it's like probably because I'm a Michael Mann fan or something. But like, if there's a chance to put people on an airstrip with like jet engines and they got to yell over each other, I'm totally doing it. So I want to say this was a Runway shot. The one thing that Runway is good for is just 10-second clips. You know, when people are like, you could do 30-second continuous clips, it's like, well, okay, but I don't do that much action stuff. So a 30-second clip is like unfucking necessary. Like 10 seconds is a long time, especially if you know editing. So this one is, yeah, same process basically. And this is probably how I'm going to do all of it. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm done. I might do some character generation in Midjourney first and then take that over to Hailou. But as far as putting actual Midjourney photos into a generator, I don't want to do that anymore. And it's just not kinetic enough. And it's just, I don't know. It's, and also, you know, AI, I wish there was like a way with AI that you could just like output the footage in S-Log3 and just have like pretty much just washed, blown out footage to where you can actually color correct it. I understand a lot of people in AI are very new to editing and VFX and stuff like that to begin with, so color correcting might not be at the forefront of their mind, or you know, they might not know how big of a difference it makes, because especially AI already color corrects stuff pretty well. Like, you know, I'm not trying to knock how their stuff looks, but I'm a control freak and I want to be able to do it myself. So a great portion of this movie was made with real photographs that I just took into Runway or Hailou. I think there's a couple Kling shots in here somewhere.
Dad, how long do I have to stay in here?
And again, like I said, I tried to make this look like Half-Life 2 graphics. And just like cheap computer graphics, and just the symbolism of just Hunter, you know, he's trapped in the laptop, he's been put in this situation. More will develop on that, but I actually am not really going into the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing. It's been done to death, and I don't really have anything new to add to that yet. All of this footage I've mostly, again, used before. I've talked about that, but this sequence as well turned out pretty much exactly as it did in the dream. However, the Trump phone call will probably be rewritten and re-recorded in the number one, the remaster version of just Act 1 by itself, and then the actual director's cut. I am a firm believer that, you know, multiple versions of a film could and should exist. I love that. I want to watch all the different versions, even if it's a difference of 3 minutes worth of scenes. You can change a lot of a story in 3 minutes with that. And so I've used this shot a ton, but it was just so cool with the elephant and everything. Like, I just wanted this to, again, be like the Republicans are like the orcs. They're like the Vandals or the barbarians coming to invade Rome. And it's just that dread and impending fear they all feel. I really love how this scene turned out as well. Just like Obama is kind of talking continuously, but Joe Biden keeps glitching and staying stuck in this moment. And initially, this wasn't an intentional thing. It's just like this was just like the composite base VFX shot that I did. And then I looked at it, I was like, oh, like I want him to be like trapped in that moment. Like he wanted to stick up for himself and argue back, but he like couldn't. And like that's a regret of his. And his brain associated being in this limo with that conversation, and that's why we warp right to her. That scene was initially supposed to be a little bit longer. It was actually supposed to take place backstage of the thing, but I decided to include the campaign portion, you know, in the sort of fast scene. So this scene is just like a mishmash of so much stuff. There's stuff from the work print still in here. Again, with the color correction, you know, like before he takes the shot, everything's more faded and gray. After he takes the shot, everything kind of wakes up. Again, that's another little trick I learned from the Manchurian Candidate. Ted Dem fucking spazzed in that movie. It's so good, and I would encourage everybody to watch it back. Also, one of Denzel's best performances. But when he's activated and they say Raymond Shaw, Sergeant Raymond Shaw, or whatever it is, and he gets activated, the lights in the room kind of get brighter and things sort of start buzzing, and like I love that motif. And yeah, so I wanted to kind of do that with this, to where it's like when he's taking the shots, and like in my mind, like the early on, he was probably just taking like massive amounts of B12 and shit like that. and like supplements and stuff. And then near the end, I mean, I think after the debate, he was definitely on something that was like closer to speed or whatever. But yeah, this scene, you know, we're going back and forth from seeing him on TV. We're seeing a couple reactions again. I love reaction shots, and it's the one thing I think most AI filmmakers are dropping the ball on. And they don't understand that when we go back and watch movies, our brain registers it as we saw someone saying the dialogue. Most of the time what we saw was somebody reacting to the dialogue, and that informed us on how to feel. Not them saying it, but the reaction from the character that's hearing it. And so I tried to put a lot of reaction shots in this and really just treat this with the same kind of coverage you would treat a real film with. And I haven't done tons of films, but you know, I've done enough that I know what coverage means, and I know it's fucking important because I've edited far more than I've shot. But with this, you know, you can get the coverage you need. It's not like you're limited to one day of shooting or anything like that. So, yeah, and again, there was supposed to be a lot more graphics in this, and in the director's cut, they'll probably be added. But I decided against it. I was going to kind of like show the exact date, show the exact location, introduce everybody, show who they were. And I'm the guy that loves to do that. I love graphics and font and typeface and whatever you want to call it, title sequences. I love that shit. I'm obsessed with it. It's my favorite. But with this one, if I started, I never would have stopped. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to not and let the characters speak for themselves and the story speak for itself. Because also, I'm not trying to make a historical document here. Like, I'm trying to tell the story in an interesting cinematic way, using these real life people as stand-ins for just characters in a movie. And if I don't have an elevator pitch for a movie, I don't go forward with making it or writing a full feature-length script or anything like that. If I can't explain the movie in 3 sentences, like, it's just not really worth trying for me. Other people, they can, you know, and that's fine. But with me, it's like, this was a 3-sentence movie. It was a president running for re-election. He is losing his mind, and everybody's finding out about it. And that right there is enough drama. You know, like, that's enough drama to carry a movie. And it carried all of our attention for a whole summer. And so that's really why I selected this story, not because of the political side of it or because I wanted to like convince people to vote for Trump or whatever. That shit's fucking lame. I don't do art for that. I'm not like here to be like a conservative artist or like, you know, push super conservative values. I'm just here to give Democrats their due and treat them the way conservatives have been treated for a long time. Because now, like, you know, like, they're also an audience that, like, has never seen shit like this before. Most conservatives have never had anybody that tried to entertain them with shit that they know about. It's all just informational media. And that can just get grating a lot. And it's like, you know, liberals are just the best at having their own media and just movies that they like and shit like that. And it's like, why can't we do this? Like, why can't conservatives just get their shit together and do it? And they just, I don't know if they don't care as much or what it is, but and that's why, like, you guys that watch this and say nice things, like, it gives me a lot of hope. And I want people to know, like, you know, I have love for everybody here. If you're a liberal and you like my stuff, great, man. I want to talk to you. Like, I don't fucking just dismiss people because of their political beliefs or anything like that. And I've got a ton of, you know, MAGA moms and stuff that follow me, and I love you guys too. And I want to keep just making stuff that you guys think is cool and that I think is cool, and, you know, try to make stuff that's true and honest. I think this movie feels real. I think it, you know, like, I'm not trying to just, I'm just not trying to make cartoons out of these people. I'm trying to treat them like real people with their own motivations and desires and needs and stuff like that. And I'm also not here to slander a president. I'm not here to just make him look like a drooling buffoon or anything like that. But I am trying to convey the I'm trying to convey the severity of like a derelict president, like a ship sort of lost at sea. Like that's a very scary thought, and I think we came far closer to the brink than we understand.
Well, look at it this way: if we both
so
impale ourselves with a samurai
yeah.
sword,
So anyway,
Hunter can
this
use our
this
blood to
scene,
make a $20 million
I
movie.
really want to go back and change the entire thing. It's probably my least favorite on a technical level. Now this scene with the walking through the hallway and the B-roll, Runway really spazzed with this, and I was happy with how these turned out. Again, B-roll is a really important thing for just filling out your world and letting people know. And we've all seen the White House before. We kind of know the vague imagery, but it's still important to put it in there to me because it's just like movies are as much about feeling as they are just conveying information. You also want to convey an atmosphere too. This one was made with a Midjourney photo I had. One of the first generation sessions I did for Letterhead, the movie. A lot of the stuff in the first 15 minutes of the movie I've generated 8 different iterations of and tried. And I always end up just changing it at the last minute. But this scene is kind of one of my favorites in the whole thing. None of it was in the script. It was all made on the fly. It just sort of came out of me. I love this shot though. I mean, this is why I'm hesitant to get rid of Midjourney, because it's like sometimes it just gives you fucking gas. But yeah, Joe just staring at like sort of a mirage of Trump. And Trump's not even saying anything, he's just staring back. The dead flower patch in the garden, again, a lot of symbolism. Melania planted that garden. And she's thinking back to the inauguration day and stuff, and I don't know why. I fucking love this scene. And it's not even like that deep or crazy or anything, but it's just like, it reminded me that you can make a whole scene out of just someone staring at a dead flower bed. And that you can do a lot with that. And that's what I want to try and do more of with the movies too, and just really get into the character's psyche, and figure out a way to convey that. And that's why I'm just so grateful for generative AI video, because I had started writing the script almost immediately after the debate, and then I stopped because I was like, no one's going to make this fucking movie. Like, there's no way I'm going to actually get this made. This is ridiculous. And then I started looking at what generative AI was doing, and I was like, oh, God. Okay, well, let's see. Maybe I can throw a little thing together, and I started messing around with voice clones, because I was already doing that for this Batman fan edit that I was making. So yeah, I don't love how Joe's face looks like that, but they didn't warp it too bad. All of this stuff was made in Hailou, except for this. That's a real photo of him in the room. Also, the main close-up shot I used for Joe Biden is a real photo as well. That flashback of Bo was one of the first things I ever generated for Letterhead. Because I always kind of envisioned that scene early on. I used 2 Joe Biden voices for the film. One is from the State of the Union address, another incident where they say he was on drugs. I will say this though, Joe Biden, when he was on it, he could deliver a fucking speech. Like he seemed like a blue blood American, politician. And what's interesting now is this. We hate those guys. Like anybody that I look back on that was just like a status quo person, I'm like, oh my God, you're worse than the worst radical. You were just letting trillions get stolen. Regardless, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But I think Joe Biden was the last of his kind. We will never see another good old guy, likable old granddad politician ever again. I don't think we will ever see that again. It's just, it's the end of the LBJ era of presidents, in my opinion. I used this shot twice in the movie, and I don't like that I did that. And there was another better shot I had, and I just didn't put it in there for some reason. The longer something is, the harder it is to rake it for mistakes and figure them out. And with AI and voice cloning and the matching and the faces and pretty much every shot you've seen of people talking is a face from Infinity AI composited onto a shot of Hailou or just a still photo. So I did a ton of compositing and masking to make this work and to make it try and feel like a actual movie or whatever. and not just a mouth moving.
No one is trying to mute me and get in the way.
I do love this Tim Waltz speech. The clone I got of his voice is really good. I have an insanely impressive voice clone library. It looks psychotic, like when you see it, but I don't know, it's cool, and I'm gonna preserve it too. I'm gonna try and make sure this stuff never gets, at least the samples never get taken away. Because also I was making this film, and this is gonna sound a little tinfoily, but I was making this film under the assumption that within a year or so this would get banned, and this type of filmmaking. Because also, like, I was under the assumption Trump wasn't going to win. I didn't really think, I'm not going to get into why, but it was still the Democrats have, they've pulled it through before. So I just wanted to get this done as quick as possible, and I still think that AI could be in danger of being banned later on, or political films like this and stuff like that. They certainly are trying to in Europe. The American companies already are, because most American corporate entities are cowardly as fuck. And, the thing is, it's just, the film business is as much about, taking risk as mitigating it. And now that these companies are publicly traded, shareholder interest becomes the dominant thing. But they don't understand that looking out for shareholders is not how you make good movies, and making good movies is how you make money. And the whole business of this shit is backwards. So this George Clooney scene I really wanted to clean up more. I'm not pleased with how it worked, a lot of the color correction. And again, that's why I'm like doing a remaster and stuff. Like, I'm a firm believer that like Letterhead will just be this sort of large story sculpture that we're just going to keep carving away at. But I like the idea of building up into a full movie, and the final cut or director's cut or whatever I call it will be the final version, and I'm not going to mess with it anymore. However, I do want to collaborate with more artists on the in-between stuff, and then start making smaller shorts with other artists about the before stuff, basically everything from the pardon period forward, and then the post Letterhead story stuff, because well, I don't know, I don't want to get into spoilers, but just some of the stuff that I've already kind of put out, and the whole story of, Kamala's campaign and whatnot. I need people to kind of do that. I wanted that to be sort of a separate, different, funnier movie. And I want Letterhead to be able to experiment with different stuff. I'd like to make a war movie of Letterhead, it could be about Ukraine or whatever. And I would like to expand into a movie about the Trump shooter and stuff like that, but I don't know why that one just doesn't doesn't interest me as much beyond what I'm going to talk about it in here. So that's the second run through. We've almost been here for an hour. If you guys are still listening, I fucking love you. You're great. And thank you to you for watching. Again, if you want to support this, I don't have any subscription or Patreon or way to do that right now. And I'm not super concerned with that right now. Just share it with somebody. Just send it to somebody or tag somebody and be like, hey, you would really like this, if you know they would. If you know they're a fan of that Aaron Sorkin House of Cards type shit, show them this and see what they think. Even if they hate it, it's still a view for me. So anyway, yeah, thank you guys for watching. I think I'm going to start a podcast where I talk about politics in movies. I have watched an insane amount of movies. I've kind of been a work-at-home entrepreneur. And I promise I'm not a drug dealer, but I've just worked in booking and stuff, and it's like an email job you can do from home for years and years. So I have had a lot of time to watch movies. And I love talking about them and stuff like that. And not just this is about why Republicans should be in movies and shit. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in doing a biased thing, but really talking about the relationship that American politics has with movies and sort of the meta politics of movies and what they mean in American culture. So, and I just kind of want to go through genre by genre. And these aren't going to be like fucking film essays or anything. It's just going to be me kind of riffing on it and talking about the ones I know, because I just like recommending movies to people as well. And if it's already people that are interested in, you know, stuff like Letterhead, I've got a lot of movies you could watch that you might be interested in. So anyway, stay tuned for that. Yeah, thank you guys a lot. And I appreciate you, and I will see you soon.